I'm going to film a homebrew Wednesday, possibly late or early, depending on when it gets up. Still enjoying a brew firm Grand Cru from Brewmaster Ben. I was going to do this video a week or so back, but I had, I don't know, dramas in my life, like everyone does, but I won't go into details because I'm not one for, airing dirty laundry, as they say. But so brewing wise, a week or so, probably 2 or 3 weeks back, I had a bit of a brew day from hell. A case of, I did a brew in a bag. I'd filled the boiler up with just the right amount of water, and then realised as it was getting up to strike temperature, this is in the SS Brewtech kettle, that the hop filter wasn't actually in the brew kettle, so I had to drain all the water back out, get it all out, put the filter back in, and then fill it all back up and try and get it back up to temperature again. And that was a nightmare. And I think with that one, it just continued to get worse. I think I'd realised as well that I'd lost the adapter I needed for my chiller. So it was an overnight mash. I left it. I went to a shop in the morning to get this extra little bit for the chiller. I think I actually sent it back with the grain father when I had that, to be honest. So that's, someone's got an extra bit on their grain father when they would get to test one or whatever. So I had to go and buy that. And then I think when I did decant it off, I didn't do a whirlpool properly. The hops got stuck in the hop filter. Tried to use the auto siphon. The hops got stuck in the auto siphon. Then when I eventually did get it into the fermenter, I'd left the tap open in that, and then loads of beer went on the floor, and it was just a nightmare all the way through. But the beer turned out pretty good. That was, that was the plus point. Then the week just gone, I did the Top Dog Stout from the Graham Wheeler book, and I think I put in a video the week before that when I was brewing it, the colour didn't seem right. The hop percentages were definitely wrong. There have been revisions from that book, obviously, because alpha acids have changed and whatnot. I went online and found out that the hop percentage for that recipe was slightly off, so you needed to add more hops, which I sorted out at the time. But the colour was, perplexing me at the time. I couldn't work out what was going on. It seemed very, very light. And I think I did the trial jar sample. I held it up to the light, and I thought, this does not look right at all. I fired off a message to Brewmaster Ben at Hammer Homebrew, and I think Hammer Homebrew said when he brewed it, it wasn't like that, it was dark. Couldn't think what was going on. Then I typed the recipe out to Hammer Homebrew and Brewmaster Ben, and then as I did, I'd realised the error that I'd made. Instead of using chocolate malt to get the darkness and the roasting stuff, I'd used crystal malt. So it basically just made a bitter instead of a stout, but with the hop additions, of a stout for the bitter. So it's probably going to be quite under hopped for a bitter, which in the end I chucked a load of dry hop in there as well to kind of balance it out. Did I bottle that in the end? I can't remember what I did with it. I think I kegged some and bottled some. So it's been a sort of a couple of weeks of disasters for brewing, and that, which led me on to, when I did bottle it, the kind of stout type, bitter type thing, it tasted okay, but I find that with all my bitters, and I didn't get it quite as much in the Brewing the Bad bitter that Darren reviewed recently, but it's there a little bit for me, I find I get a very alcoholic note. I think like when people say that you can ferment to a higher temperature, you get the fusel sort of alcohols, but it's not that, because the strange thing about it is I get it in every bitter that I produce, and I had it in the Ringwood 49er. I also tasted it in, also not in a bitter as well, I tasted it in the Root Citra 6 that I made, where it's almost like say you're drinking a 4% beer, but it tastes more like it's a 6%. Now everywhere I read, this is the fusel alcohols, and it's where you've had too high a fermentation, and you know that kind of thing. But I get this in kind of bitters mainly, and I've had it when I've brewed in the flat with no temperature control, and it's a steady temperature. And I know you could say, well, how do you know it's steady? It's semi-steady. It's always like a 19-20 degrees. But I've also had this in beers where I brewed it in the fermentation fridge at my mum's. So I really can't understand how in bitters I'm getting this kind of funny taste, or it's just me, because people I give the drinks to, they say, oh, it's fine, it tastes fine. No one's ever come back and gone, oh, that tastes like a really strong bitter. They're just kind of like, oh, this is a nice bitter. So I don't know, maybe I just can't, I don't think I can produce a good bitter, but others do. But there's just something I can detect in the taste for me. It's not an off taste, but it's just like a too strong taste. Like, I mean, even with this this Grand Cru here, it's, you know, probably 7-8%. Doesn't taste like that. I mean, some of the stronger sort of, you know, beers you can get, you think real get that there's a strongness to it in that, but you shouldn't be getting kind of like a bitter or, you know, something like that. Obviously, when I do IPAs, obviously maybe the hop aroma and the bitterness is hiding that taste. I don't know. Maybe it's an off taste for me. I hope I'm not developing a, you know, a weird off taste that I can detect in my beers, but it just seems to be with bitters to me, and I think that's probably part of the reason that I stray away from it. I don't get it in stouts, but then I put that down to maybe the roasted malts and things like that are masking the taste. It's hard to say, but it kind of puts me off brewing bitters, but they're one of the styles I do like to brew. I'd kind of like to eradicate it, but maybe, I don't know, or could be the yeast I'm using. I think a couple of times I've had it, I've used Nottingham or USO4. I don't know if it's just me or, you know, I'm just getting a bit paranoid about it. But so that's my woes with that at the moment. And also of late, without making this video too long, I've decided to kind of downsize a little bit. I've been brewing probably 2 or 3 years now, I think, and I've amassed a lot of equipment. I think when I initially started, I kind of thought that I could do the 3-vessel thing at my mum's, make it work there. I took the odd day off here and there, and it works out okay in the summer sometimes. But when you've got a family and you need to be at home, it's not, you know, it's not practical. Brewing the bag's been kind because I can do it in the flat around family time. You know, I can't argue with that. So over the past week or so, I've been selling a lot of my old equipment off. You know, stuff I built a kegerator, stuff like that, stuff that I haven't ever got to use, and it's sitting there going to waste. So I decided to sell a lot of my old stuff off, if you like, and I just, you know, it's been quite a, quite refreshing to just kind of get rid of some stuff. When you're storing too much stuff, it can be a bit of a minefield, and especially when you're in a flat and you're trying to store it all, and the loft's a mess, and it was just time to, you know, get rid of some stuff and, you know, cleanse it out. But I think for me, I'm going to kind of focus on keeping a core sort of setup of what really works for me. At the moment, the induction has been fantastic. The SS Brew kettle, that's great as well. I kind of want to stick to kind of just a core amount of things that I use, rather than having, you know, at one point I could probably say I'd had like 2 or 3 setups. I do still have some kegs actually that I am going to hold on to, because as much as I kind of can't use 3-vessel at the moment, and I've got nothing against 3-vessel, I think, to be honest, you can make good beer with anything. You can make it with a bag, you could probably make it in an old sock, but, you know, everyone likes different things. Everyone likes maybe a bit of shiny, everyone likes to do things the way they do things, and each different sort of setup brings its own things with it. You know, I mean, with my brew in the bag, the temperature control could be a bit better. You can't do step mashing. You know, there's certain things you can do with each setup unless you perfect it to your own. So the kegs I'm going to hold on to, you know, eventually when I do get a house. I'd like to have a nice shiny 3-vessel possibly, but I am swaying towards getting an all-in-one machine. You know, Brown Master is quite expensive, I have to say, but the Grainfathers, it's looking tempting. I mean, I have my issues with it. I have been seeing that, you know, possibly most of these issues could have been a one-off, and they will be rectified in the future. So, you know, I'm keeping an open mind to getting an all-in-one machine and that. Purely for space, purely for, you know, minimising things. And I think I'm going to kind of go back to, I've brewed a lot of full volume beers lately for various reasons. But for me, 10-litre batch is perfect for me. You know, if it's a good beer, I'll put it in the keg. Even if it's a bad beer, I'll put it in the keg. But sometimes having 23 litres of beer is just way too much for me to consume and bottle. And, you know, the quicker turnaround, especially with the 9-litre corny kegs, it's great to just kind of get to bottling day. It's all in the keg. If there's a bit left over, a couple of bottles, it's perfect. Which brings me to the thing that of late I've kegged some fantastic beers, and I don't know whether it's because they've been fantastic from a keg or because they were good anyway, and it kind of like you drink and you're halfway through the keg and you think, damn, this is the kind of beer I wish I'd sent out to people. but I was just too lazy at the time to boil it. I thought I'll put it straight in the keg. And then going on to the flip of that, I brewed a beer recently that kind of had a underwhelming hop taste, and it was a Simcoe that I used, and it was quite by its sell-by date. Probably lacked in the bitterness, but it was more of a pale ale than an IPA. And the funny thing with that beer was that when I fermented it out, I tasted it. It tasted awful. I was like, this is just nasty. I hadn't even started sterilising the bottles by that point, because what I like to do is sort of get the hydrometer reading. Know if it's, if you're gonna, dash the beer down the sink, you don't want to have already rinsed out 40 bottles and find out it tastes awful. So it was a no chill. It was a brew in a bag no chill, where I'd brew in a bag, had it at the flat, put it in the no chill cube, let it cool down overnight. I took it to my mum's house. I poured it into a fermenting vessel the next day, pitched the yeast, fermented it out. It tasted disgusting. It looked cloudy as hell going in. This is another point. The brew in a bag beers look cloudy going into the boil, cloudy coming out of the boil. It didn't taste great, so I thought, do you know what, I'm not even going to sterilise the bottles. People will probably be screaming right now, oh my god, you didn't sterilise the bottles, but I just thought if it tastes rough anyway, what's the point? But I just couldn't bother to dash it, so I had the bottles there. They're all clean, don't get me wrong, they're not got like fungus growing and whatnot. They were clean, they just needed the sanitation, so I just put the beer straight in there, bottled it, left it, tried a couple, not so great. 2-3 weeks on, it's turned out to be a really, really nice beer, and one of the clearest beers I've ever produced. And I just can't quite believe it. It's almost a contradiction to what I'm saying about kind of getting the grain father or getting a Braumeister and that. Is that you can produce a fantastic beer in the most kind of, how can I put it, simplest of ways. You don't need to have shiny and fancy equipment, but it's not to say you don't need it. You just want it. That's the only difference. It doesn't. You don't need it to make good beer. Getting those machines won't make you better beer, but they can help with the process. They can help with the temp ramps, or they can help with the mash times, anything like that. But it just goes to show that you can produce a fantastic beer with next to no equipment and not really much thought put into it, and it turned out to be a really, really good beer. You could see, I had a picture of it on Facebook. You could see the TV straight through it. It was clear. There was no finings put into it, and that it was just allowed to clear on its own. But so I think that's a bit from me. I've waffled on a little bit too much. So I've got a lot of videos to put up. There's going to be a few more beer reviews for Hammerphone Brew. Same for Brew My Spain. Oh, before I forget, I did get a beer mail. I've seen a few other people got a beer mail from Mosswood Homebrew, Graham Galanders. I've got his milk stout, which I'm really excited to taste, because I did a milk stout as well, and I did an all grain one that didn't turn out as great as I wanted, but I'm really interested to taste his, because it's off I think of Cooper's Kit Stout with a hell of a lot of stuff added to it, and it sounds fantastic. And for me, I'm a bit of a kind of, not that I dislike stouts, but kit stouts just don't do it for me, so I'm really excited to see that what he's done to this one. I want to give it a good taste, so there'll be a review of that soon, and I aim to get a beer mail back up to him as well when things return to normal around here. But as I say, I've got a few beer reviews to do. I've got some equipment reviews to do, a couple of equipment reviews to do actually. I've got quite a bit, but just got to try and find the time to fit it all in. But I'm sure I'll get there. So, cheers.